What did it take to become a truck driver? What were the early days like?
Yeah, so this is a central part of the story, right, that I uncovered. And the good part was that I went in without knowing what was going to happen.
Mhm.
So I was able to experience it as a new truck driver would. Is one of the important stories in the book is how that experience is constructed by employers to sort of, help you think the way that they would like you to think about the job and about the industry and about the social relations of it. It's super intimidating. I say in the book, pretty handy guy, familiar with tools, machines, like, comfortable operating stuff, like from time I was a kid. The truck was just like a whole nother experience. I mean, as I think most people think about it, it's this big, huge vehicle, right? It's really long. It's 70 feet long. It can weigh 80,000 pounds. It does not stop like a car. It does not turn like a car. But at least when I started, and this has changed, and it's part of the technology story of trucking, the first thing you had to do was learn how to shift it. And it doesn't shift like a manual car. The clutch isn't synchronized, so you have to what's called double clutch. And it's basically the foundational skill that a truck driver used to have to learn. So you would, accelerate. Say you're in first gear, you push in the clutch, you pull the shifter out of first gear, you let the clutch out, and then you let the RPMs of the engine drop an exact amount. Then you push the clutch back in and you put it in second gear. Mm-hmm. If your timing is off, those gears aren't going to go together. And so if you're in an intersection, you're just going to get this horrible grinding sound as you coast, to a dead stop in the, underneath the stoplight or whatever it is. So the first thing you have to do is learn to shift it. And so at least for me and a lot of drivers who are going to private company CDL schools, what happens is it's kind of like a boot camp. They ship me 3 states away from home, send you a bus ticket and say, hey, we'll put you up for 2 weeks. You sit in a classroom, you sort of learn the theory of shifting, the, theory of kind of how you fill out your logbook, rules of the road. You do that maybe half the day. And then the other half, you're in this giant parking lot with one of these old trucks and just like, destroying what's left of the thing, and it's lurching and belching smoke and just making horrible noises and like rattling. I mean, in these things, like there's a lot of torque. And so if you do manage to get it into gear, but the engine's lugging, I mean, it can throw you right out of the seat, right? So it's like, this bull you're trying to ride, and it's super intimidating. And the thing about it is that for everybody there, it's almost everybody there, it's super high stakes. So trucking has become a job of last resort for a lot of people. And so they lose a job in manufacturing. They get too old to do construction any longer, right? The knees can no longer handle it. They get replaced by a machine. Their job gets, offshored, and they end up going to trucking because it's a place where they can maintain their income. And so it's super high stress. Like they've left their family behind. Maybe they quit another job. They're typically being charged a lot of money. So that first couple weeks, like you might get charged $8,000 by the company that you have to pay back if you don't get hired. And so the stakes are high, and this machine is huge and it's intimidating. And so it's super stressful. I mean, I watched, grown men break down crying about like how they couldn't go home and tell their son that they'd been telling they were going to, go become a long haul truck driver, that they'd failed. And it's kind of this super high stress system. And it's designed that way partly because, as one of my trainers later told me, it's basically a 2-week job interview. Like they're testing you. They're seeing like, how's this person going to respond when it's tough, when they have to do the right thing and it's slow and, they need to learn something. Are they going to rush, or are they going to kind of stay calm, figure it out, nose to the grindstone? Because when you're a truck driver, you're unsupervised, and that's what they're really looking for, is that kind of quality of conscientious work that's going to carry through to the job.
Well, so the truck is such an imposing part of a traffic scenario.
Yeah.
So you said like turning, it stresses me out every time I look at a truck because the geometry of the problem is so tricky. And so if you combine the fact that they have to, like everybody, basically all the cars in the scene are staring at the truck and they're waiting, often in frustration.
Yeah.
And in that mode, you have to then shift gears perfectly and move perfectly. And if when you're new, especially, like it would probably for somebody like me, it feels like it would take years to become calm and comfortable in that situation, as
Yeah.
opposed to be exceptionally stressed under the eyes of the road, everybody looking at you, waiting for you. Is that the psychological pressure of that? Is that something that was really difficult?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just I saw people freeze up, in that intersection as horns are blaring and the truck's grinding, gears, and you just can't, and they just shut down. They're like, "This isn't for me. I can't do it." You're right. It takes years. If trucking is not considered a skilled occupation, but my 6 months there, and I was a pretty good rookie. But when I finished, I was still a rookie, even shifting, definitely backing, tight corners and situations. I could drive competently, but the difference between me and someone who had 2-3 years of experience it was a giant gulf between us. And between that and the really skilled drivers who've been doing it for 20 years, is still another step beyond that. So it is highly skilled.